What does my cousin say? A cousin loves to race cars, and he says, back when racing was dangerous and sex was safe. What is up, Watch Fam? I am Christian, the curator of the Theo and Harris Vintage Watch Shop.
And I am Sam.
This episode is brought to you by Fake Fragrances. And today we're talking about affordable watches that look really expensive. Now, not all affordable watches that are good look very expensive.
Okay.
Right? It's a different thing. But some do.
So, and what I love about what we're going to talk about today is I feel like a lot of these watches, a lot of them are undervalued. I think I would pay a lot more for a lot of the watches we will touch on.
I agree with that. And we'll kind of get into the whole idea about value and what we understand things to be worth. But we live in metropolitan New York, right? We live in a metropolitan city or area, and we pay $20 for a cocktail.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So many Americans have at this point this skewed perspective about what something is worth and what you're willing to pay. So if you have a really good drink at a bar that's $9, I know this sounds sick to many people that are watching this, but you come to a large city and you'll see it. It's wow, that's kind of a cheap bill. No, it wasn't cheap. That was the fair price. They charged you what was fair.
Yeah, exactly.
And some of the brands we're talking about today are charging you what's just fair, which is kind of unusual today. So, some of the brands we'll be talking about are Longines, Hamilton, Nomos, Christopher Ward, Bulova, Twice, Seiko, Casio, and Yema. So there are a lot of really cool brands, right, that we usually don't talk about on this channel. But Sam's affinity for approachable watches.
Oh, it's my favorite. It's my favorite subject, I think, in watches, because I think a lot of the viewers can relate to. Oh, I don't want to spend $5,000 on a luxury watch. I want something that provides a lot of value, packs a lot of punch at that $1,000, sub-$1,000 level. 100%. And I feel like there's so many watches in that price range, and we spoke about it on our first episode. Yeah. So to dive back in again with some different watches, I think is just great, and I'm looking forward to it. Yeah,
I think that because the bigger brands like Rolex just get so many clicks on YouTube and Omega, and you end up just only talking about them, and I love talking about them, but I love this. I love this other stuff too. So let's get into it. So the first watch that I want to talk about is a Bulova. Actually, it's actually two Bulovas, and I want to talk about not only the watches themselves, but again, for the thesis of the episode, why they kind of look expensive.
So love that.
The first one is the Mill Ships. Okay. Now, the Bulova Mill Ships is actually a watch that my dad owns, that he and I kind of share. We both wear it.
Yep.
And it's a great sports watch. It comes in at $700.
Correct.
You would never believe that this watch is 41 millimeters in size because the proportions are insane.
So walk me through that, though, because I've had that watch on my wrist before.
Doesn't feel it.
And it does not feel it.
So there are two things. Number one, because the case tapers to these 14 millimeter lugs, you already have kind of this smaller appeal.
Gotcha.
Second, because the bezel is so thick in proportion to the dial, you get this smaller feeling. Right? If that was all a 41 millimeter dial, right, you would end up with a different situation.
No, you're right.
So and that's it. You can't just say all 41s are the same or 40s are the same. If you've tried on a lot of watches, you know that it's actually the proportion and the design that really impact the wearability. Lug to lug is a huge In our next episode, we're going to talk about a Longines that was just reduced in size by 3 millimeters, but the lug to lug was reduced by 5 millimeters. So the watch is fitting 5 millimeters smaller, not just 3. Right? That's a big difference.
It's a big difference.
And a lot of those stats do go underappreciated, maybe, just because it's I don't even know what lug to lug. Okay, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
But it does mean a lot. Okay, so the Mill Ships, the reason that I think it looks expensive, and I don't think it'll look uber expensive to the average person, but to a vintage person specifically, to the average person, I don't think this is a $700 watch. This is a $1,500 watch, right? And I think it's worth every penny.
I agree.
I think it's an amazing watch. But to a vintage guy, this is reminiscent of the Blancpain 50 Fathoms.
Oh, I wasn't even going to go there.
Where were you going to go?
This is going to sound crazy. This might be controversial. But I think that this watch, if Bonds were Bulova, it was a Mill Ships.
100% right. 100%.
And what I love about this watch, and what I thought you were going to touch on with besides 50 fathoms, also if you look at the hours and the hands, and then also the bezel, it's got that like spicy brown mustard color, almost like a patina.
They call it faux patina.
That's what it's called?
Yep, faux patina.
And I think that just adds to why I like this watch so much. The other thing is I didn't realize the history with this watch. That it was started in 55 as a concept for the U.S. Navy, I believe.
Yeah.
57 were the prototypes, and then released in 2021.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
It's amazing, right? Like, if you've ever worked with a large corporation, you know that some of the work that you do actually never makes it out to the public.
Exactly.
And I guess this was one of the pieces. So, like, my dad, when he found that out, was like, wait, this is insane. Like, this isn't a reissue. It's a reissue of nothing. It's actually the first time this was
the original.
produced. Like, it's actually the original.
Yeah, exactly.
That's insane, you know? So I think this is just such a great watch. Again, for a vintage person, it's reminiscent of the Blancpain 50 Fathoms. To even a mass market person, you're right, it's so Bond. This is not a $700 watch. This is a $1,500 watch easy. And if it's a Blancpain 50 Fathoms, right, which is so similar in design and frankly, like, delicate. Like, this watch takes a beating. It's $50,000. You know,
it's wild.
It's a total different ball game. The other Bulova I want to talk about is the Oceanographer GMT.
So the first question I have, the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Pepsi bezel? How do you feel that they ripped it off?
So they did, right? Like, Rolex invented the Pepsi, and there's no excuse for anyone else stealing it. Is that fair?
I don't know. I don't think so. Because that means that any watch that has a Pepsi bezel, is that automatically a ripoff of a Rolex, even if it's a diver? Just because they use the color scheme? I don't know what the answer is.
Well, I guess you're right, because the question becomes like, can you own two primary colors? I think blue and red are both primary colors, right?
Yeah.
Can you own two primary colors? Is that a thing? Can a brand just own that? Is that fair? Like,
I don't know.
Come on.
Now,
Rolex doesn't even own green. Like, people can use green. It's not like, oh, it's a Rolex ripoff. And yet the Pepsi is such a bright and distinctive and well-marketed combo.
well, of course.
That they own it. What I like about it is it's so different in design.
I was just going to say that, but tell me why you like it.
Yeah, well, again, it's like you're not similar to our sponsor, Fake Fragrances. We'll talk about later. Like, it's not pretending to be anyone. It's not. Like, obviously, it took inspiration,
of course,
right? But it's not pretending. Like, no one's going to look at this and say, "Well, is that a Rolex?" No, I mean, it shares no design elements apart from two colors.
So.
And barring the modern white gold version, the dial's not the same either.
Yeah.
Like, and the hands are different. Everything is different, right? So I stand behind this watch completely. $1,350 in price. What do you think?
So I was going to say why I think this watch is not a ripoff, besides the color scheme of Pepsi. Why I like this watch so much is when you look at the hands of it, you look at the dial, the font, and then also kind of the ovalness of the case. It's more like an homage to the 60s, I feel like, than it is to a Pepsi.
Yeah,
right.
Sense? I totally agree with you. There's no Oyster DNA in this at all.
No.
Right? There's no Rolex ripoff. There's literally nothing.
I see this watch and I see the Jetsons. I see Catch Me If You Can.
100%.
Like, it's more 60s-esque in design, I feel, than again stealing a Pepsi GMT.
But Bulova really does that well. Between this watch, between their Jetstar, the 60s and 70s are a sweet spot for that brand. And I happen to love that era of design. I love everything but the bell bottoms. I'm not a big bell. Your dad was probably a bell bottoms guy, wasn't he?
100%.
Yeah, 100%. But other than that, I think that's a great era of design. I think it was so individual. And you're right. That's a Catch Me If You Can watch.
Exactly. So Oceanographer or Mill Ships, which one are you getting? I know you have the Mill Ships.
So I have the Mill Ships. Listen, the Mill Ships wear smaller. They're both 41. They don't wear the same. I choose Mill Ships just because the size is just perfect for me. Like, it's the perfect sports watch. Like, if I was forced to choose between a Mill Ships on a NATO or a sub on a NATO, I'd pick the Mill Ships. And that is a $700 watch versus a $10,000 watch. I know that sounds insane. That's where I am as a collector.
I feel it. I'm going Mill Ships also, but mainly because I'm going to buy a GMT Pepsi eventually. And I feel like I don't need that if I'm also going to get a Rolex Pepsi.
I do agree with that.
So that's my thought process there.
I do agree with that. But this is a hell of a watch.
They're both hell of a watches.
I think it's great.
This episode is sponsored by Fake Fragrances.
I am a huge fan of this brand. I know that this has been a bit of a controversial issue. The idea of anything fake, right? And clearly the brand leans into it is controversial. But I love Fake Fragrances, right? They are delivering the world world's greatest fragrances, designer name fragrances, but they've reverse engineered the concoction and delivered them to the public for a bargain, right? For a fraction of the price. I have no ethical problem with it. I don't think that by wearing a fake fragrance, you are the same way that someone wearing a fake Rolex would be pretending to be someone you're not. That is ridiculous. You're just someone that smells really good. And I think that's just good business. I think that smelling good, wearing a cologne, wearing a fragrance that is just of the highest quality and impression is that's just good for the soul. I think it's good for business. It's just good for everything. So use the code Theo Harris for 20% off your order and free shipping at Fake Fragrances. I highly recommend it. I think that to do otherwise is kind of silly. I know I don't wear a lot of cologne, but I certainly wouldn't wear anything other than Fake Fragrances at this point. So
I agree.
That's it. I love the brand. Let's do it. The next watch I want to talk about, number 2 here, is not a modern watch. Okay, this is a predominantly modern conversation, but I wanted to put one in there that's not modern, and it's not a specific watch, a specific reference. It's any vintage Hamilton. Okay, particularly yellow gold Hamiltons. Okay,
just pull it up real quick. Yes,
these watches for between $500 and $1,500, depending on service history, depending on the quality of dial, case, are, I think, truly some of the greatest buys in vintage watches. Now, as a Hamilton, you're not going to get a collectible, right? Nature. There's no collectability to it, right? You're not going to make a ton of money on this. I don't think that there's a big upward mobility in price. Sure. But this is a no-brainer if you're the kind of guy that either A, wants a dress watch awfully bad and doesn't have the budget for a Cartier. B, if you're the kind of guy that has a budget for a Cartier, right, for an $8,000 Cartier, but the dress watch isn't the priority. Like maybe you want a sub, maybe you want an Aquaterra from Omega, maybe you want a Panerai. A sports watch is where your heart is. But like you kind of have this dichotomy, and you want a dress watch. It's like, dude, just throw $800 at a Hamilton. Like they're perfect. They're amazing watches.
I mean, the one that we're looking at for reference is the Hamilton Gilmore. I believe it's 10 karat gold. What I love about this watch is just I don't know what it is, but I want to put this watch on with a pair of t-shirt, jeans, and like white sneakers, and I want to go watch the football game at my buddy's house.
100%.
I don't know why it gives me that vibe. It's just it's class. I don't want to dress it up. I want to dress it down.
Totally.
The other thing too is that Hamilton is a brand that I would not think of or would have thought of 5 years ago. Why aren't more people buying these watches or getting these watches?
I think that the dress watch craze is still fairly new. I think
Gotcha.
that people
Okay.
are only
You little trendsetter, you.
I'm a little trendsetter, right? Like on an episode of The Zero that we just recorded, Sam and I. It's going to be public probably by the time this is public. If you are not a member of The Zero, by the way, it's our private podcast,
Yes.
and weekly episodes and a beautiful community. Go ahead and sign up for The Zero. Link is down below, and if you do sign up, shoot me a DM, and I'd love to talk watches with you. It's a great community. I hope you join. But we were just talking about like how I was on whatever. It's like
You kind of started the Piaget gold tank.
Not that I started, but I've definitely been talking about this stuff forever. I love this stuff. It's not because I was forward thinking. It's because I was unoriginal, and all my uncles loved these watches, and I admired my uncles so much. I admired my grandfather and my uncles, and I just wanted to be like them as a kid. So I never thought that being cool looked like a Rolex. You guys were children of James Bond. I wasn't. I was children of outer borough, right, blue collar guys that love to wear slacks and dress shoes and and put on a nice watch. Like that's who I was a child of, right? So that's always been my idea of class. That's always been my idea of like that's what made it looks like. So it's not because I was a forward-thinking person. It's because I was completely unoriginal. But these watches are amazing, and my call to action is essentially a vintage Hamilton is a great way for between $500 and $1,500 to get what is essentially a $10,000 look or an $8,000 look in a Cartier tank, right? The most famous of the category, and B, at this price point, it allows a whole world of people that just never really want to allocate or make an $8,000 commitment, like the ability to like get in on the style for kind of cheap, relatively speaking, for kind of cheap. You know what I mean? So
sub $1,000.
I'm a huge advocate.
And then last question with the Hamilton, where would you be looking to buy this watch or vintage Hamilton watches? Are you
It's a
going
good
eBay?
question.
What are you doing?
Like, yeah, I mean, you can look on eBay. Obviously, you know, you're not going to get fakes, so I wouldn't like
Okay.
eBay. I'm really worried about fakes, like with vintage.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there are fake Hamiltons out there. I think you're probably fine in that category. My recommendation is though, whatever you first of all buy quality, buy a great dial, spend the extra money, do it. Do not. You're already going the cheap way. Go the right way,
Gotcha.
right? And I don't mean that disparagingly. Like you're going the efficient way, you're going the cheaper way. You're not buying the Cartier, but do it right. Because if you do it right, you're going to thank me and you're going to say, "Wow, I ended up with a watch that is just unbelievable." If you do it wrong, you're going to be like, "Why did I buy this kind of shitty looking watch?" You know what I mean? So my recommendation is go on eBay. Or go on Reddit or go into vintage stores, which is really my favorite. You go into like a vintage watch shop, like a bullshit old dusty place that doesn't really have anything much at all. They will have stuff like this. And that makes the story all the more special. Go to New Hope, Pennsylvania and poke around. You know, My only recommendation with this is financially, do a lot for $500 in service. Because these watches probably have not been serviced. So if you buy a watch for $500, assume this is going to cost you $1,000 and be okay with it and make the decision with that in mind. Because I don't want you to buy a watch and then say, 6 weeks from now, oh my God, what did I do? I don't want that either.
Of course.
The
service idea was smart. I didn't think about that.
Well, thank you. Oh, listen.
That's what you're here for, I guess.
A little.
That's why they pay you the big bucks.
A little yin yang. Great. So you'd wear this watch with a t-shirt.
Yes, t-shirt. I'm going to my buddy's house. I'm watching the football game. I'm gonna have a few wings and maybe a beer or two or 5.
Whether you're a Submariner guy or a 50 Fathoms guy or a Day Date guy or an FP Journe guy, you've got to just take a step back and appreciate this history here. This isn't stuff you're going to find in a showcase. This is not mass-produced stuff, which is beautiful in its own right. I mean, this is treasure hunting. Category here is the high complication category. Now, I don't think necessarily that the average person, the average just guy is going to or girl that doesn't care at all about watches is going to really notice if a watch is complicated. I don't think that's true.
That's fair,
right? But someone that's moderately interested in watches does. Someone that's moderately interested in watches is going to know, like, okay, I know that's difficult. I don't know how it works. I don't know exactly how it works or what it does exactly, but I know that that's really great watchmaking. Okay, that's complicated. And there are two watches here that I want to talk about, and the first is the Nomos Zurich World Time. Now, this watch retails at $6,100, so I know it's not cheap. It's not a cheap watch, right? It's not cheap, but in the scheme of complicated watches, it is affordable.
So what would you pay for this watch? Because I feel like it's undervalued for what you're getting.
It is. Now, the problem with the Zurich World Time is because it's been in production as is for so long, the excitement has worn off on the watch. Okay, so the retail price hasn't changed. It's remained $6,100, but because it's kind of old and still amazing, it's a little bit stale. So people are always looking for them, like on the secondary market.
Makes sense.
If Nomos updated the watch no improvements necessarily, just like made it a little bit different, right? So it's new and maybe a little bit fresher. And by the way, my dad, I gifted my dad.
I
one
love
of
this
these
watch.
watches for Christmas.
I've tried it on. It feels great.
I put my money where my mouth is. I bought my dad one for Christmas. So it's not like I'm telling you, I'm giving you the advice that I took myself. And my dad loves this watch. Okay, $6,100. If it was brand new watch, I think they could charge upwards of $8,000.
That's fair.
Maybe even $9,000.
I was gonna say I would spend $8,000 for a watch like this.
Yep.
What I love about this watch too is it's just clean. Like the dial itself, I love the way that the cities are sized. Also, just how efficient and how quick this watch is to use and change. You just hit the button. And you know what this watch reminds me of? Remember when we were quick story, but 2019 we were in Oktoberfest in Munich, and we had the pleasure of meeting some of the fans of T&H, which was awesome. We had a great time. And do you remember going? And I believe, and don't hate me, any of the German fans, is it called the U-Bahn? U-Bahn? It's like their metro. I believe I'm correct with that.
We went on the Metro?
You don't remember that? I wonder why you don't remember this. We went on the Metro, and all I remember is how clean and how efficient it was. And this is coming from two kids from New Jersey. And anytime you go on NJ Transit or the subway, you want to take a shower, and you're always late.
Yeah.
And I just remember how efficient and clean the Germans are in their transportation, and this is a great representation of that in my mind.
Yes, you're exactly right.
That's what I think of when I think of this.
Listen, German culture is a weird thing, right? Like, German culture is so specific and so regimented that it really reflects in everything they make.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it really does.
Even remember how quick the bathrooms were in Oktoberfest?
I do.
It was.
Yeah.
And it was clean.
Yeah. I was in Germany pretty recently, and like, they really abide by street traffic signals,
okay.
like walk, don't walk. And a German colleague got a little uppity with me because I wanted to cross, and he goes, "Oh, you New Yorkers, I'm like, first of all, I'm from New Jersey." He goes, "You New Yorkers, you don't follow the rules." And I was like, maybe the fact that we question our government. No,
that's where you're going. That's where you're going.
Maybe you guys are a little too law-abiding.
Jesus
no,
Christ.
no, I love the Germans. The Germans have been an incredible supporter of the company, and if I were to boil down the country, the nationalities that I spend the most time with, it's Australian clients are huge for us.
Okay.
German clients are huge for us, and British clients are huge for us. Other countries, we're present in all other countries, obviously, Singapore, but the point is, we're really close with those countries, like awfully close, and I consider myself very lucky.
Anyway, here's to Prost to Oktoberfest 2024.
That's right, we're going. That's right.
See you guys there.
If you want to hang out in Oktoberfest next year, shoot me a message. Anyway, I think this is one of the watches. And on the opposite side of the spectrum, pull up the Yema Rally. What is it, Rally Graph?
Rally Graph. Do you know I'm sure there's many famous people who've worn this watch.
Yeah.
Can you name the one that I'm thinking of?
No.
Mario Andretti wore this watch in the 60s.
Certo.
Yeah, I learned that today.
Wow.
I learned something today. This is a watch brand that I'm new to, so I'd love to hear a little bit more. My understanding is they were started in France in 48, 49?
Yeah, it's a French brand, really famous for their divers.
Yes.
They since went defunct. The brand has been brought back. They make mechanical watches, but also mecha quartz watches. I'm really, which is what this is.
Yes.
This watch is, by the way, $370.
This is a beautiful watch at the price point.
$370 chronograph with amazing design, and it's got a smooth sweep because it's a mecha quartz, not just a regular like classic like Michael Kors quartz, right? This watch at $370, if you showed this to somebody, like an average Joe, they would assume it was several $1,000s.
I thought this was a few $1,000s when I saw the photos of it.
They are underpricing this watch. It is silly. I give Yema like a huge amount of props. Period. End.
So what do you love most about this watch?
Oh, I mean, listen, the reason that I love the Paul Newman Daytona is not because it's cloudy. I love the Paul Newman because it's exotic, because it's weird, it's funkier, it's serif. I love that. I love design like that. I love design that's a little bit funkier. I'm a big advocate for color, right? And the same way I'm an advocate for shapes here. Like, this is a weird watch. I think this watch is actually prettier than a lot of Daytonas.
But it works. I
works
love
great.
that it's I don't know what shape is that even, like a defunct oval? Like,
yeah,
it's weird.
You mean the subdials?
The subdials
Yeah,
are just,
I mean, it's like they're rounded squares. Like, it's bizarre.
It's great. I love
with
it.
no 90-degree angle.
And it works.
Totally.
It just works.
Perfect.
I kind of want this watch now.
I know. It's $370.
It's so worth it.
Great date execution. I think this is amazing. This is amazing.
I love it. I'm a big fan. Last question that I do have while we're in this category of
Please.
Yema and then also Nomos. Are these considered micro brands? Would you consider them? And how are we defining micro brands? Because it still confuses me.
So I would say that Nomos is large enough. Nomos is the largest. I think it's the largest manufacturer of German watches.
Okay.
And they're super global. They're all over. So Nomos is an independent brand, not a micro brand.
Okay.
Yema is a micro brand, and at that, I don't know this to be true. They may be corporate.
Okay.
They may be owned by a larger corporation. So I don't think that would make them a micro brand. They would just make them like a really like micro brand-esque, like independent product, like independent seeming product. Ultimately, I don't really care who owns you. I just care that you're making a product that matters to the people. But no, it's a great question.
I get that, but like I'm always concerned or confused are we basing this off of number of watches sold, the number of watches produced, like to make it, independent versus micro.
I think
or
technically
corporate versus
speaking,
micro.
a micro brand is an independent brand that has a localized following.
Gotcha.
A
That makes
localized
sense.
distribution network. I think that's what it technically means.
That's fair.
We don't really look at it that way because with the internet, nothing's localized.
True.
Not really. So it's kind of just like small and independent, kind of scrappy and cool.
Gotcha. I
That's
like that.
kind of what it means.
All right.
Yeah.
I can get behind that.
And once you start making millions, you become an independent. And it's
Gotcha.
different. It's like a promotion.
It's a
from
stepping
micro.
stone.
It's a stepping stone. So yeah.
I love these watches though.
We have two more categories I want to talk about. The next one is this. It's not a particular model that it emulates. It's a category of watch. It's a class of watch. It's this what was kind of invented by Patek Philippe or popularized by Patek Philippe in their Calatrava, and in this color I think among probably the most tasteful colors. Right. It's a rich color. It's not white. It's not black. It's not silver. It's salmon. Salmon dial watches have for quite some time been pick of the litter. You can't really get a great salmon dial watch. It's very, very difficult, or it has been historically very, very difficult. When Patek made something in salmon, they made 4, right? Like Rolex doesn't, right? It was one of those. It's one of those colors. Like the mass market thinks like, oh, I think they have the discussion like, I think blue might be cool because it rides the line between like interesting but also like good for work.
What voice is that?
It's like Zoolander. You know what I mean?
Say.
And then I think it's like then green. It's like I think that green is the cool one now because it's also like interesting, right? It makes me not like fit into the mold, but it's like also good for work. And salmon really was the original, right?
Gotcha.
We have a watch in the shop right now called a Mixa, and that was from the original era
nice watch.
of famous not famous but of the popularization of salmon dials, right? It's got the glory days of salmon, and now. We may be in a rebirth.
Gotcha.
I love it. I just bought a Salmon Dial JLC. I was actually with you when I bought it. I was pretty
Beautiful
drunk.
watch.
Pretty drunk when I bought it. Just came in yesterday. Reverso and white gold. And today I want to bring to you 2 amazing Salmon Dials. One at what?
25? 25.
One at $2,500 and then
One
another at $825.
Yep.
Very different price points. One from Longines, $2,500, and one from Tissot at $825. So a couple questions. Well, one, what justifies? Well, let's talk about the watches themselves. The Longines is in the Master Collection. It is just this beautiful watch that I recently purchased myself. Salmon dial, brush dial, automatic movement, big sub dial, like these leafy kind of hands, just perfect proportion. I think 37 millimeters in diameter. I couldn't be happier with this watch. I absolutely love it. When they released this watch and it was $2,500, I could believe it because it's from Longines, but otherwise I couldn't. Right? Longines, I think. As a strategic matter, like underprices their watches. They do it all the time. Almost all their watches are underpriced, maybe all their watches. It's kind of ridiculous. But this one really blew me away, specifically for one big reason. The dial is engraved, right?
I was gonna ask if that was painted on or engraved.
It's engraved.
'Cause I know I've seen this
It's
watch.
an engraved dial. Fuck. It's insane.
That's wild.
It's insane.
This to me is just it is a elegant watch when I see it. It's the texture of the dial, that brush. It's the engraved hours, and then also the strap is just high quality.
Yeah, it's just this.
It feels great.
Alligator strap. It's amazing.
It's a beautiful watch.
Yep.
I think it's definitely, as you just mentioned, underpriced.
Even the signature of Longines, it's
It's elegant.
It's rich. Like this watch is $2,500.
It's worth it.
If you told me it was $4,500, I'd be like, yep, that makes sense.
Walk me through the Tissot next.
So the Tissot is obviously significantly less expensive, $825, and I think that if you're working within budget constraints, right, that this $825 to $2,500 is significant, which I understand completely. It's a lot of money difference. I recommend the Tissot. I think it's great. I think it takes a lot of the cues. It has a vintage signature, right? They don't use the modern Tissot. It's like this really cool, configuration. It's a beautiful color salmon. It's a 3-hander. It's an automatic. It's got so much in common with the Longines. Period. I recommend it. But the difference in price is justified. Now, both of these watches are recommended. I recommend them both. If you buy the Tissot, I think you're smart, right? But the Longines ought to be more expensive. The
Agreed.
level of finishing on these watches is night and day. Okay, the dial, the case, but particularly the dial, is just unbelievable. I would say one is a chronometer and one isn't, but they both are. But the point is, when you're buying into a watch, you're not just buying on like these broad strokes like automatic, steel, salmon. You're buying into details. And if we weren't buying into details, we wouldn't be in the watch business, right? We wouldn't be buying watches. The whole thing is it's not about the time, guys, right? Like, and again, I'm not saying you should buy the Longines. Like, make the decision for your own budget. But I'm almost taking no position. But the price difference, like, is understandable, justifiable, and I think that you should buy whichever one based off of your budget. But they're both freaking awesome and appropriately priced. It's silly. And this watch at $825, I think could easily be $1,300.
Really? Okay.
Easily.
So I think that the Longines is worth every penny. There's no doubt about it. I've put that watch on. It feels great. It looks phenomenal. Why I think I don't know if I'm not going to say I prefer, but would lean more towards the Tissot is I love the straightforwardness of this watch. It's not pretending to be anything else. When you look at the numbers, it's very clean. It's a clean, almost basic in a good way font, which I enjoy. And what this almost reminds me of, and I don't know if you would agree with this, but if a field watch had a Salmon Dial.
I agree. It's very much like that. It almost looks like a clock at school.
Yeah, but I love like that I don't know what you call that.
Yeah, it doesn't have the same level of elegance.
No, by no means.
But it is a lovely
I enjoy that
versatile watch. What's the millimeters?
39.
39.
I love that.
I do love the proportion better on the Longines as well. 37 I think is a better
You have a small
size.
wrist.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Someone had to say it.
But you're right. They're both great watches.
I love them both. What's next?
The last category I want to talk about is what watches deliver that gold vibe, even without being solid gold, that isn't cheesy, that is tasteful, that I would recommend. And there are 3 watches here. One from Seiko, one from Casio, and then again, one from Yema. On their site, I really fell in love with their stuff.
Watch.
Okay, so let's start off with the Casio. This is the SGF 206. No one's going to think this is a gold watch. Right? No one's going to think like, oh, wow, he's wearing a really expensive gold Casio, right? But it is a gold tone watch. And that means that you're opening up a whole world of like design choices and palette choices with your outfit, right? With your wardrobe rather. And I think it does it in a way that's really tasteful, kind of like ironically 80s. But it works. I think that I could wear that watch right now and go to a watch event and people would be like, cool.
I feel like the person that owns this watch has a really good sense of humor.
Totally.
Like, I want to hang out with that person.
Yep.
I want to have a
conversation.
conversation.
If he's got a ton of money.
Exactly. You bought a $70 watch.
Because I'm trolling all of you. That's what he's doing.
It's the best.
He's trolling all of everyone that's spent
great.
$85,000 on a watch. And he probably has that at home too, but he's like, I don't know, this is a really good one.
Well, I'm wearing my Casio. It's got an alarm attached to it. It's cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You want to steal it? Steal it. It's $70. It's $70, and I think it, to put it short, like it's $70, and I think it gives off BDE.
Yes,
like it
agreed.
gives off like energy, like a masculine energy that I think is really really cool, and I think it's just great. Now another one is this Seiko SGF 206. This is more on the nose. It's more of a Datejust alternative. I actually prefer the Casio.
Me too.
But it's it has that Datejust day date kind of thing going, and I know that people do like to emulate it. My general recommendation would be to go Casio though. I think it's just such a departure that it's not trying to be something it's not.
Yeah.
I still like this watch. Again, I still recommend the Casio, but this is in the ballpark. If you really want to go with that Datejust alternative, day-date alternative, I do recommend you look at the watch, assuming that the Datejust day-date in solid yellow gold, $35,000 out of your price point, $45,000, which I guess is
most people.
Us, right?
Yeah,
most
exactly.
People, you know what I mean? So the next one is this watch around $1,100. From Yema.
It's a lot of watch.
Again, I'm sorry for bringing the brand up twice. They're not a sponsor of this video. I just really like the watch. This is the Navy Graph in bronze. Again, $1,100, 38.5 millimeters, automatic movement. I think what is essentially a perfect design from a historical brand. I won't go too long about this. I won't drone on. But this is a 1680 Submariner on a NATO. Like this watch is at $1,200, $1,190 is essentially flawless. They absolutely knocked it out of the park with this watch. It does not get the credit it deserves.
Yep.
I think everything about it is perfect.
I agree with that.
Right?
At $1,200 or $1,200, I feel like you're not getting, what's a vintage gold watch going to cost?
Gold watch that size?
That's what I'm saying.
$3,000.
I just feel like for that price, you're getting just a phenomenal.
Watch.
It's fun.
Not to mention you can wear it. You can wear it.
Exactly.
It
just looks great. It's clean. It is clean.
Yeah,
I like this a lot. If we had to pick any other watch you want to bring up?
That was it.
If you had one watch out of what we've just spoken about, what are you going with?
All of those watches? Oh,
yeah.
Christ. Again, keeping price in mind. I mean, I think the Millships is a no-brainer. I think the Millships is a no-brainer. I think the Hamiltons are a no-brainer. And I think the Longines is a no-brainer.
I'm going with the Rallygraph.
The Rally, for $400, you're right. $365. You know what?
But take price out of it. That's what I just like the design of that watch. It's unique. It's cool.
It's beautiful.
Obviously, the Millships is just another beautiful watch.
Yeah,
that I would
the
look
Millships
at.
is much more simple than the Rallygraph. The Rallygraph is just like cool, just 70s kind of funky, design.
Throw your bell bottoms on.
Very, very, your denim shirt on the racetrack.
Yeah, exactly.
What does my cousin say? A cousin loves to race cars, and he says, back when racing was dangerous and sex was safe.
It's actually pretty good.
That's good,
I
right?
like that.
And I understood it immediately, but he likes to be didactic, so he goes on to explain, because now racing is safe and sex is dangerous. I'm like, no, I got it. I got it. Steven, I love him to death.
Oh, he's a sweetheart.
But that's it. If you guys liked this episode, then obviously. Comment down below if you liked Sam's performance. I think Sam brought the fucking money today. My guy.
Oh, let me hear it in the comments, baby.
I'm telling you, he took the fucking bad comments on the fucking chin.
Oh, you know it.
And that's it. If you'd like to join our podcast community over on the Zero, please go ahead. I'd love if you did. We do podcasts every week. We just released an amazing. We're talking about F.P. Jorn and whether he's a groper or an anti-Semite and a million other things from Grand Seiko and analyzing their whole market strategy. We're talking about a lot of really, really neat stuff over on the Zero. So go follow over there. Link is down below. And if you do join, shoot me a DM and we can chat about watches there. I'd be happy to talk to you. That's it.
All right. See you guys soon.
Boom.
After we pounded it.
That's all right. We'll pound it. Come on. My guy. Watches are unimportant to the time. They can't speed, slow, or stop it, and our phones tell it better. But, as vessels for memories, they know few rivals.